Welcome to True Crime Case Files. Today, we delve into a chilling story of betrayal and murder in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. This is a tale of love gone terribly wrong, where secrets and deception led to a tragic end. It was a warm evening on June 29, 2019, in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. The summer sun had just set, casting long shadows across the quiet neighborhood. At around 8:30 p.m., Josh Parker, a 33-year-old software engineer, made a frantic call to the Old Saybrook Police Department. He had just found his wife, Vanessa Parker, dead in their master bedroom. Josh had been out running errands that evening. He went to Stop and Shop to pick up groceries and then swung by Starbucks for a coffee. When he returned home, he noticed that the house was unusually quiet. Calling out for Vanessa, he received no response. Concerned, he walked up the stairs to their bedroom, where he discovered a horrifying scene. Vanessa, a 32-year-old event planner, was lying on the floor, her wedding veil wrapped tightly around her neck. The room was a mess, with furniture overturned and personal items scattered everywhere, showing signs of a struggle. Josh immediately dialed 911, his voice trembling as he described the situation. When the dispatcher asked Josh to check for a pulse, he complied, but it was clear Vanessa was gone. His shock turned to despair as he sat on the floor beside her, waiting for the police to arrive. He was visibly shaken, his hands trembling and his face pale. Despite the trauma, he managed to stay on the line with the dispatcher, answering questions and providing as much information as he could. Within minutes, the Old Saybrook police arrived at the scene. Officers secured the area and took charge of the investigation. Neighbors gathered outside, their faces reflecting a mix of shock and curiosity. The usually serene neighborhood was now buzzing with activity as news of the incident spread. Local media, including the Hartford Courant and Channel 3 Eyewitness News, arrived on the scene, capturing footage of the police activity and interviewing neighbors who expressed their disbelief over the tragedy. The discovery of Vanessa Parker's body marked the beginning of a complex investigation that would uncover shocking secrets and lead to a devastating conclusion. As the night wore on, the police worked diligently to gather evidence and piece together the events that led to Vanessa's untimely death. Vanessa Parker was 32 years old at the time of her death. She was an event planner in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, known for her demanding and perfectionist nature. Friends and family had nicknamed her Bridezilla in the months before her wedding. Vanessa lived with her husband, Josh Parker, in a cozy house on Main Street. They had recently spent $100,000 on their lavish wedding, which took place at the historic Saybrook Point Inn, a popular venue for such grand events. Vanessa was ambitious and meticulous in her work and quickly made a name for herself in the event planning industry. She was the go-to person for organizing upscale weddings and corporate events in the area. Her clients included high-profile companies and wealthy families who admired her dedication and attention to detail. Despite her demanding personality, Vanessa had a close group of friends who respected her drive. Her best friend, Jessica Moore, was always by her side. Jessica, a marketing manager, had been Vanessa's confidant since their college days. They often met at the local cafe, Ashlawn Farm Coffee, to discuss work and life over a cup of their favorite brew. In the days leading up to her death, Vanessa was busy finalizing details for an upcoming corporate event. She had spent hours working on seating arrangements and floral designs, determined to make everything perfect. Despite the stress, Vanessa had big dreams. She wanted to expand her business, possibly opening a second office in New York City. She envisioned herself as a leading figure in the event planning world, admired for her creativity and professionalism. Vanessa's life seemed perfect on the outside, but she carried a burden of secrets. Her demanding nature and high standards often put a strain on her relationships. The discovery of her body marked the tragic end of a life filled with ambition and dreams, leaving her family and friends in shock and grief. The Old Saybrook police arrived at the Parker residence within minutes of Josh's frantic 911 call on June 29, 2019. The team was led by Detective Sarah Collins, a seasoned investigator with 15 years of experience. Detective Collins, known for her thorough and methodical approach, quickly took control of the scene. As the officers entered the master bedroom, they were met with a chaotic and disturbing sight. The room was in complete disarray, with furniture overturned and personal items scattered across the floor. Vanessa Parker's body lay on the floor, her wedding veil tightly wrapped around her neck. The scene suggested a violent struggle had taken place. Detective Collins noted the presence of broken glass, likely from a shattered lamp, and bloodstains on the carpet, adding to the grim tableau. The initial assessment pointed to a crime of passion. Vanessa's death appeared to be the result of strangulation, a brutal and personal method of murder. The use of her own wedding veil as the murder weapon added a chilling element to the crime, indicating a deep emotional connection between the victim and the perpetrator. Detective Collins and her team began their meticulous investigation. They documented the scene with photographs and sketches, ensuring every detail was captured. They collected fingerprints from various surfaces, hoping to find matches that could identify the killer. Fibers and hair samples were also gathered, providing additional forensic evidence that might link the suspect to the crime scene. The police used luminol to detect any hidden bloodstains, illuminating areas that had been cleaned in an attempt to cover up the crime. They also utilized advanced tools like 3D scanners to create a detailed digital model of the room, allowing them to analyze the positions and movements during the struggle. Detective Collins interviewed Josh Parker, who was visibly shaken and cooperative. He provided an alibi for his whereabouts earlier in the evening, claiming he had been running errands. Despite his calm demeanor, the detectives kept him under close scrutiny, aware that spouses are often primary suspects in such cases. Neighbors were also interviewed, with officers canvassing the area to gather any information about unusual activities or suspicious individuals. The local community was in shock, and the media, including the Hartford Courant and Channel 3 Eyewitness News, reported on the tragic event, increasing pressure on the police to solve the case quickly. As the investigation progressed, Detective Collins and her team remained focused and determined, knowing that solving Vanessa Parker's murder required piecing together every bit of evidence and uncovering the hidden truths behind her tragic death. Josh Parker, Vanessa's husband, was the first person the police investigated. At 33 years old, Josh worked as a software engineer. He was known for his calm and composed nature, which often complemented Vanessa's demanding personality. However, the pressure of their lavish $100,000 wedding had taken a toll on him. Friends mentioned that Josh had been more stressed lately, trying to keep up with Vanessa's high expectations and the financial strain. The police brought Josh in for questioning on June 30, 2019, the day after Vanessa's body was found. Detective Sarah Collins led the interrogation. Josh appeared tired and distraught, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Despite his exhaustion, he maintained a cooperative attitude. He recounted his activities on the evening of June 29th, explaining that he had been running errands, including stops at Stop and Shop and Starbucks, before returning home to find Vanessa. During the questioning, Detective Collins noticed Josh's hands were trembling slightly, a sign of his nervousness. He described his relationship with Vanessa as loving but admitted that her demanding nature had been challenging. He mentioned the strain of planning their expensive wedding and the arguments they had about money. Josh's demeanor remained mostly calm, but there were moments when his voice wavered, revealing the depth of his emotional turmoil. The police asked Josh about his whereabouts during the estimated time of Vanessa's death. He provided detailed accounts of his activities, including receipts from the grocery store and the coffee shop to support his alibi. Despite his cooperative behavior, Detective Collins and her team knew they needed to verify every detail. They collected Josh's fingerprints and took a DNA sample to compare with the evidence found at the crime scene. Friends and family described Josh as a patient and understanding person. He was known for his supportive nature, often going out of his way to help Vanessa with her event planning business. However, the financial burden of their wedding and Vanessa's high expectations had pushed him to his limits. Detective Collins continued to probe, looking for any inconsistencies in Josh's story. They asked him about any recent arguments or conflicts with Vanessa, to which he admitted they had fought about money and the wedding expenses. Despite the tension, he insisted that he would never harm Vanessa. As the investigation progressed, the police kept a close eye on Josh. His cooperative attitude and detailed alibi were crucial, but Detective Collins knew that uncovering the truth required thorough and meticulous work. They needed to explore every lead to ensure they did not overlook any crucial evidence. Jessica Moore, Vanessa's best friend and maid of honor, was the next person the police investigated. Jessica was 31 years old and worked as a marketing manager. Known for her cheerful and supportive demeanor, she was a loyal friend to Vanessa despite her demanding nature. Jessica and Vanessa had been inseparable since their college days at the University of Connecticut, where they both majored in business. On June 30, 2019, Detective Sarah Collins and her team brought Jessica in for questioning. Jessica appeared visibly shaken, her eyes red from crying. She described her relationship with Vanessa as close and supportive. They often met at Ashlawn Farm Coffee to catch up and discuss their lives. Jessica recounted the days leading up to Vanessa's death, explaining that they had been busy with last-minute wedding preparations. During the interrogation, a shocking revelation came to light. Jessica was not just Vanessa's friend, she was also her lover and secret wife. The two had been married for 3 years, a fact they had kept hidden from everyone, including Josh. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the investigation. Jessica admitted that she and Vanessa had been planning to defraud Josh by blackmailing him with compromising photos Vanessa had taken. Detective Collins noticed Jessica's nervousness as she spoke. Her voice trembled and she fidgeted with her hands. Despite her anxiety, Jessica insisted that she had no part in Vanessa's murder. She explained that their blackmail scheme was meant to secure financial stability for both of them, not to harm anyone. Jessica's emotional turmoil was evident, but she maintained her innocence throughout the questioning. The police asked Jessica about her whereabouts on the night of Vanessa's death. She provided an alibi, stating that she had been at home, working on a marketing campaign for her company. She mentioned specific details about the campaign, including emails and files she had worked on, which the police later verified. They also collected Jessica's fingerprints and DNA samples to compare with the evidence found at the crime scene. Friends and colleagues described Jessica as a hardworking and dedicated individual. She was well-liked at her job and known for her positive attitude. However, the revelation of her secret relationship with Vanessa and their blackmail scheme cast a shadow over her character. As the investigation continued, Detective Collins and her team remained focused on uncovering the truth. Jessica's emotional state and detailed alibi were important factors, but the detectives knew they had to examine all aspects of her relationship with Vanessa and their secret plans. On July 2, 2019, 3 days after Vanessa Parker's death, a break in the case emerged. It was a humid afternoon in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, with temperatures climbing into the high 80s. Detective Sarah Collins received a call from a local resident who claimed to have found something suspicious while walking his dog in a nearby park. He had been walking his golden retriever, Buddy Rogers Jr., through Saybrook Point Park when Buddy started barking at a bush near the water's edge. Curious, he approached and discovered a smartphone partially hidden under the foliage. Realizing the potential significance, he immediately contacted the police. Detective Collins and her team quickly arrived at the scene. The phone was carefully collected and sent to the forensics lab for analysis. Within hours, technicians managed to unlock the phone and retrieve its data. What they found would change the course of the investigation. The phone belonged to Vanessa Parker. Among the texts, photos, and emails, investigators found a series of incriminating messages between Vanessa and her secret wife, co-conspirator and lover, Jessica Moore. The messages detailed their blackmail scheme against Josh Parker, with explicit instructions on how to execute their plan after the wedding. Additionally, the phone contained compromising photos of Josh that were meant to be used as leverage for blackmail. Detective Collins reviewed the new evidence with a mix of relief and determination. The messages revealed the extent of Vanessa and Jessica's plot, providing a clearer motive for the crime. The team also discovered a series of heated exchanges between Vanessa and an unknown number, later identified as belonging to Michael Reynolds, Vanessa's other spouse from San Diego. The text showed that Michael was furious about Vanessa's threats to release a sex tape involving her and his mother, adding another layer to the complex web of relationships and motives. With this new evidence, the police focused on tracking the movements of Jessica and Michael around the time of the murder. They checked surveillance footage from nearby stores and traffic cameras, trying to establish their whereabouts. The forensic team also compared the fingerprints and DNA found on the phone with those collected at the crime scene. The discovery of Vanessa's phone was a significant breakthrough. It provided crucial insights into the motives and actions of the key suspects. Detective Collins and her team felt a renewed sense of urgency and determination to bring the case to a close. They knew they were getting closer to uncovering the truth behind Vanessa Parker's tragic death. Hey, true crime case solvers interested in more real-life murder mysteries, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Stay safe, true crime case solvers. Michael Reynolds, Vanessa's other spouse, was the third person the police investigated. Michael, 40, worked as a construction manager in San Diego. He had a reputation for being hot-headed and had a tumultuous past with Vanessa. Despite moving on, he had occasional run-ins with her, leading to speculation about lingering feelings and unresolved issues. On July 3, 2019, Detective Sarah Collins and her team brought Michael in for questioning. Michael had flown in from San Diego after hearing about Vanessa's death. He appeared agitated and defensive during the interrogation, his frustration evident in his clenched fists and terse answers. He described his relationship with Vanessa as volatile, marked by frequent arguments and dramatic reconciliations. Michael revealed that Vanessa had been blackmailing him, threatening to release a sex tape she had made with his mother. This revelation painted a picture of Vanessa as manipulative and ruthless, willing to go to extreme lengths to control those around her. Michael admitted that he was furious with Vanessa, but insisted that he would never harm her. The police asked Michael about his whereabouts on the night of Vanessa's death. He claimed he was in San Diego working late on a construction project. Michael provided contact details for his coworkers, who corroborated his alibi. He also showed flight records to prove he had only arrived in Connecticut after learning about the murder. Detective Collins noticed Michael's volatility during the questioning. He frequently raised his voice and seemed on the verge of losing his temper. Despite his anger, Michael consistently denied any involvement in Vanessa's death. He expressed relief at being away from her manipulations, but also a sense of regret for the way their relationship had turned out. Friends and colleagues described Michael as hardworking but prone to outbursts of anger. His temper was well known in his professional circles, but he was also respected for his dedication to his work. The revelation of his tumultuous relationship with Vanessa and the blackmail added a layer of complexity to his character. The police collected Michael's fingerprints and DNA samples, comparing them with the evidence found at the crime scene. They also examined his phone records and text messages, looking for any signs of communication with Vanessa leading up to her death. As the investigation continued, Detective Collins and her team remained vigilant, aware that the truth was often hidden beneath layers of lies and deception. Michael's volatile nature and detailed alibi were crucial pieces of the puzzle, but the detectives knew they had to keep digging to uncover the full story behind Vanessa Parker's tragic death. On July 5, 2019, Detective Sarah Collins and her team finally identified the murderer. Josh Parker, Vanessa's husband, was the one who strangled her with her wedding veil. The breakthrough came after the police meticulously analyzed the evidence found on Vanessa's phone and the crime scene. Josh Parker, 33, had always seemed like the perfect husband. He was a calm and composed software engineer admired for his patience and supportive nature. However, beneath this calm exterior, Josh was struggling with the immense pressure of Vanessa's demanding personality and the financial strain of their $100,000 wedding. The discovery of Vanessa's secrets pushed him over the edge. The night before Vanessa's murder, Josh had discovered incriminating messages and photos on her phone. He found out about Vanessa's secret marriages to Jessica Moore and Michael Reynolds, as well as the blackmail schemes. This shocking betrayal led to a heated argument between Josh and Vanessa, which escalated into a physical struggle. Detective Collins pieced together the events leading up to the murder. Vanessa's veil was used to strangle her in the master bedroom, indicating a crime of passion. The disarray in the room and the evidence of a struggle pointed to Josh as the perpetrator. The police compared Josh's DNA and fingerprints with those found at the crime scene, confirming his involvement. On the evening of July 5, 2019, Detective Collins and her team moved in to arrest Josh Parker. They found him at the couple's home on Main Street, sitting in the living room, seemingly lost in thought. The officers approached him cautiously, explaining the charges and reading him his rights. Josh did not resist. Instead, he seemed resigned, his expression a mix of sorrow and relief. As the handcuffs were placed on Josh, he looked around the room one last time. He was not surprised by his arrest. He knew it was inevitable. The Parker family's reactions were a mix of shock and sorrow. Vanessa's parents, Robert and Linda Parker, were devastated by the news, struggling to comprehend the tragedy that had unfolded. Vanessa's sister, Emily, was inconsolable, mourning the loss of her sister and the collapse of their family. The arrest of Josh Parker brought some closure to the investigation, but left a trail of heartbreak in its wake. The Parker family and their friends grappled with the reality of Vanessa's death and the betrayal within their own home. The community of Old Saybrook was left reeling, trying to make sense of the tragic events that had shattered their sense of security. The trial of Josh Parker began on October 15, 2022, at the Middlesex Superior Court in Middletown, Connecticut. The courtroom was packed with media, including reporters from the Hartford Courant and Channel 3 Eyewitness News. The case had attracted significant attention due to the shocking nature of the crime and the revelations about Vanessa Parker's secret lies. The prosecution was led by Assistant District Attorney Lisa Brown Henley, a 45-year-old known for her tenacity and keen legal mind. Brown Henley argued that Josh Parker had premeditated the murder after discovering Vanessa's secret marriages and blackmail schemes. She presented the evidence found on Vanessa's phone, including the incriminating messages and photos, as well as the forensic evidence linking Josh to the crime scene. Brown Henley painted a picture of a man pushed to his limits by betrayal and financial stress, culminating in a violent act of rage. The defense attorney, Brian Stevens, a 50-year-old with a reputation for his persuasive arguments and empathetic approach, argued that Josh Parker had acted in a moment of temporary insanity. Stevens claimed that the discovery of Vanessa's double life and deceit had caused Josh to lose control. He portrayed Josh as a loving husband driven to a breaking point by the overwhelming stress and emotional turmoil. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with emotional testimonies from family members and friends. Vanessa's parents, Robert and Linda Parker, attended every day, their faces etched with grief. Vanessa's sister, Emily, often broke down in tears, struggling to cope with the loss and the betrayal by her brother-in-law. The courtroom atmosphere was tense, with both the prosecution and defense presenting compelling arguments. On November 19, 2022, the jury delivered their verdict. Josh Parker was found guilty of second-degree murder. The decision was met with mixed reactions. Vanessa's family expressed relief that justice had been served, though the pain of their loss remained. Some community members felt the sentence was too lenient, given the premeditated nature of the crime. Judge Karen Miller sentenced Josh Parker to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. In her sentencing remarks, she acknowledged the emotional and psychological strain Josh had been under, but emphasized that taking a life was an unforgivable act. Josh showed little reaction as the sentence was read, his face a mask of resignation. The verdict and sentencing had a profound impact on all involved. Vanessa's family and friends continued to grapple with their grief, finding some solace in the justice system's decision. The trial's outcome was seen as a step toward healing, though the scars left by Vanessa's death, and the trial would linger for years to come. After the trial, the lives of everyone involved were forever changed. Josh Parker began serving his 25-year prison sentence at the MacDougall Walker Correctional Institution in Suffield, Connecticut. The facility, known for its high security, became Josh's new home as he adjusted to life behind bars. Reports from local news outlets, including the Hartford Courant, followed his transition, noting his attempts to come to terms with his actions and the reality of his long sentence. Josh's family struggled to cope with the fallout. His parents, who had been supportive throughout the trial, found it difficult to visit him. They faced the dual challenge of dealing with their son's incarceration and the public scrutiny surrounding the case. They occasionally spoke with reporters, expressing their sorrow over the tragedy and their hope for Josh's eventual redemption. Vanessa Parker's family tried to rebuild their lives after the trial. Vanessa's parents, Robert and Linda Parker, continued to live in Old Saybrook, where they were active in local memorial activities to honor Vanessa's memory. They set up a scholarship fund in her name at her alma mater, the University of Connecticut, to support students pursuing careers in event planning. The scholarship was reported by local media as a way to keep Vanessa's legacy alive and contribute positively to the community. Jessica Moore, who had initially been a key suspect, faced her own challenges. Though she was not charged with any crime, the revelation of her secret marriage to Vanessa and their blackmail scheme led to a significant loss of her professional reputation. Jessica left her job as a marketing manager and moved to a different state to start anew, distancing herself from the scandal. She maintained a low profile, with few public appearances reported. Michael Reynolds, Vanessa's other spouse, also tried to move forward. He continued his work in San Diego, but faced ongoing media attention due to his involvement in the case. He occasionally spoke out about the impact of Vanessa's blackmail on his life, expressing his hope for personal healing and closure. Overall, the aftermath of Vanessa Parker's murder and Josh Parker's trial left deep emotional scars on all involved. The community of Old Saybrook slowly began to recover, with residents coming together to support one another and remember Vanessa. The tragic events had a lasting impact, shaping the lives of those involved for years to come. Thank you for listening to this episode of True Crime Case Files. The story of Vanessa Parker is a tragic reminder of how secrets and deception can lead to devastating consequences. Join us next time as we uncover more tales of crime and intrigue. Until then, stay safe.